I can't help you with that. I can't help you with that. Adam, can you help her with the string cheese? Oh my gosh. Anyways. Okay.
Okay, we are recording.
Okay, hello. This is the streets meeting. It is April 27th, 2022. And here we have Mayor Hughes, Mike Flickinger, our engineer, and me, Anastasia Koss. Okay, so Mike, I'm going to kind of turn it on to you so you can give us an update about everything that's going on. And then basically, maybe I would like a little bit more of a recap again, because sometimes I just need a reminder, and I think it would be good for everybody on where we stand, what's going on, what the plan is, and then kind of go from there, discussion wise.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty easy enough. I will let me walk out. Let me go through it let me go through it in the order of our task numbers. That just helps me keep things a little straighter. The first item that I wanted to bring up, excuse me, is it's a task that we're not doing, but we're helping coordinate for the village, and that's the 2022 street pavement condition assessment.
Okay.
So I had some correspondence with Resource International. I think it was earlier this week. Their field work isn't complete yet. They got waylaid basically by the weather. It's work that you want to do when it's dry, if you can, for at least the pavement condition assessment. So the field crews that were out there, they had to hold off because of the weather. So they're hoping to get back out there, I think within the next couple of weeks, to finish the field work, I think was their goal. And they are scheduled to have their draft report to the village by the end of June.
Okay.
So that time frame and that duration of work tracks with what they've done previously. So I think they're just steadily moving along. And then when the weather breaks and the crews become free again, they'll be able to finish that field work.
Gotcha.
Task order number.
I'm typing on my phone. I'm just taking notes so everybody knows.
Task order number 18, which is the 2021 Storm Sewer Improvements Project. That's the AKA East Shore Court project. I'm not sure we necessarily need to rehash everything as far as why we're starting later than we anticipated, unless you feel it would be good for documentation.
Sorry to interrupt. We do have new neighbors, so maybe just like a little bit of background would be good.
Okay. Yeah, that's easy enough. This project bid last Labor Day, basically around Labor Day 2021. The goal or the hope was that maybe the project could be completed by the end of 2021. That was always going to be a long shot, based on how late in the calendar year we bid the project. There was some delays, I guess, just some internal decisions, getting things started within the village to get it out earlier. Bid the project around September, executed the agreements as soon as possible. Contractor placed his pipe order in October of 2021 due to pipe material availability and just, I mean, I know people are sick of hearing it, but supply chain issues are affecting construction all over the place. The contractor approached us and said, "Hey, by the time we actually get the pipe delivered to the site, it's going to be in December 2021. Are you okay with delaying the start of the project until the spring of 2022 so that we're not trying to install pipe in the middle of the winter. We're not trying to place concrete in the middle of the winter, which would violate the specs most likely anyway, because the temperatures would be too cold." So we consulted with the village and we recommended the village delay the start of the project until roughly mid-March. We were notified by the contractor that there was a shutdown at the pipe supplier's factory. I think they were shut down for a couple of weeks, which put all of their pipe orders behind. So instead of being able to start mid-March as originally anticipated, the pipe was probably not going to be available until mid-May 2022. Because of that, they can't, they obviously couldn't start as early as we had hoped. The contractor attempted to procure the pipe from a couple other manufacturers that make the same type of pipe material, but those manufacturers were not accepting new orders because they also are having a challenge meeting all of their scheduling requirements, and they didn't want to take on additional work. We considered an alternative pipe material, but that pipe material, number one, isn't normally approved for the city of Columbus storm sewer manual, which is the design standards that the village follows. Um, and based on submitting that pipe, even if we could get that pipe material approved based on when they would submit it and when we would be able to review it and when it would get delivered to the site, it basically was on the same schedule as the pipe that's already included in the project. So we decided that it was not worth pursuing that second or alternative pipe material.
Great.
So the contractor currently is scheduled to mobilize the end of May. So they're actually, to help the project pick back up a little earlier than it might have, they flipped some of their work sequences and they're going to do some of their site work first. Originally, they were going to do a lot of the pipe installation first and then do all of their embankment and regrading and everything second, but they want to get the project going and be finished with it as soon as they can, because this is a challenge for a contractor. Contractors are only allowed. Contractors have what's called a bonding capacity, which basically means their bonding company, it's kind of like an insurance, will only allow them to have so much work under contract at one time. So this project, which is a project that's between $200,000 and $300,000, is just sitting and eating away their bonding capacity for all this month. So this, as long as this project goes, this is a project that they can't bid and take on elsewhere. So they definitely are motivated to finish this project as soon as they can too. So they've flipped some of their work tasks, and they're currently scheduled to mobilize on May 23rd.
Okay.
And our intent was to basically get through April, which, April's ending this week, and then to follow up with them at the beginning of May. So basically next Monday, May 2nd, confirm that the schedule is still solid, confirm that the pipe material is still scheduled to arrive. They're hoping it can be delivered by mid-May. That was the latest update that they had gotten from their pipe manufacturer, which is about on pace with what they had told us previously. And then assuming that this schedule is still correct, we've already had a pre-construction meeting with them virtually, but what we want to do is we want to have our field inspector meet with their field staff on site before construction begins, and they're going to discuss some of the site access, determine where equipment will be coming into and leaving the site, where they may store some materials. And then after we get a good feel for that, then we want to have another conversation with the village just to let everybody know this is where equipment should be. This is when we're going to be on site. And then the village can notify the residents if desired, or post things to the Facebook page, or however the village wants to distribute that information.
Okay. And then in regards to like the grading and stuff like that, people's yards are going to be affected. Like, are they going to take care of the grading in the yards as well, or just the grading that's necessary for the project? Like if it affects homeowners, grading as well?
They will be doing all of the grading that's shown on the drawings, which basically is in everybody's yard and is restoring or regrading everyone's yards to work better with the project. So everybody's backyard will be restored in some fashion. If there is work, or if there is something that happens to somebody's property because of accessing it, so if equipment comes in and you're bringing in tracked equipment and you're bringing in deliveries and pipe materials, anything that's disturbed will be restored by the contractor also.
Okay. Okay, just making sure. I'm sure that's gonna be a question raised. So thank
Yeah,
you for doing that. Yeah.
you're
Okay.
welcome.
And then those drawings, where can I find those?
Um, they've there's versions out in the
Just
village
on the website?
ether, um, but they're
Oh,
probably
okay.
not necessarily set on the website. So I will send you a PDF of the entire project manual. It's
Yeah,
basically it's a PDF of the specs and the drawings.
okay. I'm not an engineer, but I would like to pretend to be one for a day or two.
That's quite all right.
Prepare for a lot of questions that may or may not be high level, medium
Okay.
level.
No, no, that's great. I mean, you know,
I'm just
one of the
curious.
advantages is we have people that, we're doing this every day, and but these are generally small enough projects that it's relatively easy to just get your arms around it.
Yeah,
And it's stuff that they're relatively straightforward. I mean, it's a pipe and it's some concrete and it's some grading, so it's not an overly complicated thing. So I think once you see it, you know,
yeah.
you'll
Because
grasp it pretty quickly.
well, the thing is, if people are going to ask me questions, I want to know what I'm talking about and understand the project as to my best ability. You know what I mean? I want to do my homework.
Yeah.
Tiffany knows I talk a lot, so there's going to be people are going to be asking me things.
Well, and it's beneficial to the village um, to have sort of a first layer of response. So if there are relatively straightforward questions that you can answer or relatively straightforward things that you feel comfortable answering, it's better for the residents to go to the village first than
Yeah,
to come straight to me.
yeah,
Number one, it just keeps that buffer between um, it keeps the village staff involved, which is good. And then number two, I mean, it's the nature of the business when if a resident calls me and I'm talking to a resident for 30 minutes or
yeah,
maybe more, that time goes somewhere. So
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I'm like right here too. Like I'm smack dab in the middle of it, so I'm going to be seeing it too.
yeah,
Personal
well,
education.
that'll be helpful. It's kind of nice then when construction is going on, you can get it, you can see see how it
I'll
goes
get
from
my
2D to
binoculars out.
3D. It there, I'm sure someone will. So
Yeah, it's going to be me. Okay, cool. So that seems like it's kind of going along as planned, more or less. I think the timeline was moved up by about 2 weeks or so is what it sounds like. And then because of the pipe coming in a little early, and then they're going to start that next week, which sounds pretty reasonable. Okay, that sounds good. That's great.
Yep.
So let's move on to the next one.
Okay, the next task order is task order number 20, which is the 2022 storm sewer improvements, aka the Jordan Road project. So this one's been going much slower than I would prefer and much slower than I had anticipated. Um, I'm I'm treading lightly here, since these are recorded in public. Um, it's been I guess it's been a bit of a challenge to get as much information from the neighboring communities as have we would prefer. Um, so uh, because of where this sewer system is, there's definitely some collaboration that's going to be required and is required among Minerva Park, the city of Columbus, and even a private property owner. And that's the owner, well, multiple private property owners, namely the owners in the Yasmin International Market area and the owners of the property at 5454 Cleveland Avenue, I believe is the address, and then
Okay.
also the property owners of the Northland Plaza property.
Okay.
And the reason all that is necessary is because where this sewer is located, you're actually pretty much all of the flow coming from this sewer, or let me restate that. All of the flow within this sewer that we're looking to replace actually comes from the city of Columbus. It all comes I shouldn't say it all. The majority of it comes from the west side of Cleveland Avenue. The only contribution currently to that sewer that we're considering replacing, that the only contribution from the east side of Cleveland Avenue is stuff from the Yasmin International Market property. So flow from the parking lot, flow from the roof drains. That pipe then ties into the system coming out of a detention basin that is on the Northland Plaza property. And then that sewer ties into, it actually leaves the village of Minerva Park. It goes into the city of Columbus's system, which then comes back into the village's system into the North Lake. And it actually flows through the pipe that we're replacing as part of the East Shore Court project. So there are some moving pieces in there, or I shouldn't say moving pieces. There's some coordination that's required. When we did our first hydraulic modeling for the sewer, for reference, the existing sewer is, I believe it's depending on where you are in the system, it's a 15-inch diameter sewer or an 18-inch diameter sewer.
Okay.
When we did our hydraulic modeling indicated that that sewer is undersized and that should really be a 36-inch diameter sewer.
Okay.
We weren't 100% comfortable at the time with that determination, I guess is the best word for it right now, just because it didn't seem to make sense based on what's coming into it. So if you look on the west side of Cleveland Avenue, you have the Ivywood apartment complex.
Yep.
That sewer is the primary contributor. That area is the primary contributor to the sewer along Jordan Road, or should say along the north property lines of the Jordan Road properties.
Mhm.
The sewer that leaves their detention basin is a 10-inch diameter sewer. The sewer that crosses under Cleveland Avenue, there are two of them. There's a 15-inch diameter sewer and there's an 18-inch diameter sewer. And then, the existing sewer running behind the Jordan Road properties is more 18-inch and 15-inch. So at first blush, it seems somewhat odd that we would recommend a sewer that's so much larger. It's twice the size, it's twice the diameter, but the area of a pipe has squares in it. So, twice the diameter basically becomes, I believe it's 4 times the carrying capacity. Part of this is driven by the fact that the city of Columbus did install a section of 36-inch diameter pipe on the west side of Cleveland Avenue. So we've been trying to get from the city of Columbus, was that a preemptive installation? Were they anticipating bringing more flow from elsewhere that would come into the village's system? We haven't really been able to pin that down with them. We also asked them if they could provide us with some of their hydraulic modeling, just to make sure that the inputs we had in our model, the drainage areas we had in our model, were consistent with what they had in their model. And if our hope was that maybe we had been a little more liberal in our area and we'd gotten a little bit more drainage area contributing to the sewer. Again, we weren't able to get that information from the city. We've requested it a couple times and we just haven't been able to get it. What we've done in the meantime, though, is we've had a couple other people look at our model just to make sure we didn't miss anything in our model. And we think we actually might have brought we think we might have brought a flow area into that pipe that actually doesn't contribute to that pipe. So
Okay.
we're rerunning the flow model right now. I think we inadvertently included the Huntington and Coda Transit Center flow in that pipe, and it actually goes into a pipe a little bit north of the Jordan Road area
Okay.
and ties into the Northland Plaza drainage system as a whole. So our hope, and we're running the model actually this week, our hope is that we eliminate that flow, and then that'll allow us to redo the pipe size from a 36-inch diameter pipe to something much smaller, or I should say smaller and hopefully much smaller, which then has the ripple effect of driving the price down. So that's where we stand with it right now. I think what we are going to have to do in conjunction with the village is we may have to have a follow-up conversation with the village to see if you guys are interested in considering other drainage systems. And by that, I mean, um, is it possible to, instead of having a closed system, which is a pipe buried in the ground, you know, can we possibly replace that with a drainage ditch? So it would be dry and, you know, it'd be in the backyards, it would be dry. And then during storm events, it would, you know, flow, water would flow down that and flow into the sewer system down east of most of the properties, kind of in line with the detention basin that's on the south side of the Northland Plaza. It's something that we will, if we can't drive the price down sufficiently with the reduced pipe size, it's something that we'll want to talk to the village about to see if it's a cost-effective solution that you would be interested in considering. So as a reminder, the first cost estimate that we proposed, or that we provided to the city, based on a 36-inch diameter pipe and replacing as much pipe as we think needs to be replaced, it was in excess of $1 million. And part of installing that pipe is going to require clearing and removing trees along the northern property lines of Jordan Road to install the pipe. So if we're already doing that, maybe a more cost-effective solution is an open channel that would, you know, flow during storm events. So I don't want to pursue that with you guys yet, but depending on the results of this model and depending on how it affects the construction cost estimate, I at least wanted to bring it up to the village that it's a solution, or it's an alternative that we should at least discuss.
So just, can you explain that a little bit more? So it's just like an open like creek that only floods during rain events, basically, so, or like a, I hate
Yeah,
calling
so
it.
yeah, so similar to if similar to maybe when you're driving along a country road and you see the ditches that are off to the sides, and then you'll see like little culverts that go under everybody's driveways. It's that type of ditch where it's empty. There's growth in it. There's grass. It's, you know, it's looks nice. It can, you know, you can do things to it to make sure the grass has a good grass is stabilized and you get good growth. And then, yeah, during storm events, you would just, water would flow through it and some water would seep into the ground. It would be sloped properly, you know, so we can get it to the east side of the drainage area. And then during non-rain events, you know, during the dry periods, it would just be uh, a, a ditch.
Okay. Is there anything that we can do from a village perspective to aid you guys in getting some of this information or anything like that? Is that anything, Tiffany, that we can do?
If he tells us who we need to reach out to, we can always do the same thing that he is doing.
Yeah, maybe.
But when they're not being, I'm going to say it my way, when they're not being cooperative and not responding to the engineer, I mean, yes, there's no reason that we can't continue to try as well, but it sounds like if they're not going to give the information to him, it's going to be difficult. I will tell you that the village has reached you know, in the past, coordinating with some of the other properties that he has mentioned doesn't go well either. So to answer that question, yes, we can. But what he's dealing with, I already know he's going to have issues.
Okay.
It's not going to be an easy process. And the ditch idea doesn't sound like the worst idea in the world. I did have one question without rehashing everything. I've always been told that Yasmin Market was supposed to connect in front of they were not ever supposed to connect with that pipe that goes on the back side of their property, that they were always supposed to tie into Cleveland Avenue at the front. Do we know if that's accurate? Do we not know if that's accurate? Because I guess here's my thing. If Yasmin Market is our only property in the village and we're talking about spending $1 million, and this is actually Columbus's problem, and Yasmin was actually supposed to connect up in the front, If that was the case and we don't even have one property and it's damaging all of our yards, at that point, I feel like it's something that all of us need to band together and go. I mean, this is my property, so, I have a vested interest in it, but I don't want to see the village spend $1 million on something that is not our issue, if that makes sense. However, I'm living it every single day, can't cut my grass. I absolutely, I've cut my grass already once this season, and we can't even cut half of our backyard. I live on an acre that is absolutely worthless. And over the last 5 years, it's just gotten worse. I mean, we cannot use our backyard. So I'm in the same boat that everybody else is in. I know the frustration. I just try not to, because of my position, I try not to, not in my backyard person. But do you know if that is accurate, that they are in fact supposed to be connected to the front line, or can we revisit that at some point? Because if that is the case, and we technically should not have one property and it is all Columbus, maybe we need to take a different look at this.
When I was first asked to look into the Yasmin market area, and this was, I
Right.
mean, this was probably 2007, 2008. I one time went over to the municipal building and sat in that main room and poured through. Basically, it was, here's our box of files related to this area. And I remember seeing a document that showed that that property was supposed to either tie into Cleveland Avenue or tie in on the southern side of the property to the Jordan Road
Okay.
sewer. It wasn't supposed to tie in on the northern side to the one that goes on the north side of the Jordan Road properties. The challenge is I saw that one time and I've never been in the files again, and the files that I have looked at with other staff, other village staff, don't show that. But I I wouldn't bet, well, I don't have one currently, but I wouldn't bet my mortgage on it. But I'm pretty confident that I saw that. So I think there is something associated with that flow was supposed to go somewhere else than where it goes. I also think, um, you know, it's a challenge.
Mm.
The the there's there's I think the biggest problem right now in that area is that there is a sewer close to that shopping strip that we know is deficient. It's defective. It's
Right.
blocked, it's broken, and flow can't go through it. And because of that, that is why someone installed their own relief in a manhole. And because they installed that relief, which daylights to ground, all of the flow that comes from the west side of Cleveland Avenue goes under Cleveland Avenue, it comes into the village, it hits that deficient pipe, it then backs up into the manhole that's immediately upstream of it, then it goes south into a manhole or at least a drainage structure that is on the Yasmin International Market property. And then it goes through the relief that someone installed, drains onto the ground. And I think that is what causes the flow that runs along the backside of the Jordan Road properties. So I think, I shouldn't say I think, I would be curious to see if that one stretch of pipe were replaced, what improvements would we see? Would it completely mitigate the overland flow issue that the Jordan Road property owners see? I can't say that it would completely mitigate it because we also know that there are challenges downstream of that pipe. However, I mean, we do know that eventually flow gets through the pipe that we're looking to replace and we find it downstream, but we know that it's just so we don't know exactly what's wrong with the pipes behind the Jordan Road properties. We know that there are deficiencies there by virtue of the fact that it takes 3 hours roughly for a dye test to get basically from behind the Yasmin International Market / behind the first property on Jordan Road all the way down to the catch basin that's on the Northland Plaza's property. That should be, a maybe a 15-minute or a 5-minute travel time, and it takes 3 hours based on Flowline's last dye testing. So we know flow gets through there. We just know there are challenges. But we know we're not getting hardly any flow through there because someone has installed that relief out of that one drainage structure. So flow just immediately hits these roots and deficiency and everything in that pipe and immediately back up, go through, come out the manhole and go into the backyard properties.
Is that
So
a
part of
legal
me is
installation? Like, is that like,
uh
oh, no, that's a jerry rigs type of situation?
I will just politely say somebody installed that on their own with, as
Okay.
far as I know, no documentation.
Is there something that we could do about that?
So it was my understanding that that has been discussed numerous times and it's never gone as far as I would like to see it go.
Okay,
So I think it's something that maybe we can bring legal back into. Again, it's a little more difficult without council's support for me to be the one to do it because it's,
I think
I'm going to say it this way. When you're the mayor and it's your backyard and I'm spending X amount of dollars in attorney fund, does it look bad? Does it not look bad? But it's not just my yard. It's, I mean, obviously, you know, several people along the route that is having issues and I know they're reaching out to you as well. But it is going to take a lot of attorney time. It is going, I mean, it's going to end up in a lawsuit if we go that direction. And I honestly, I believe it should have a long time ago, years ago. I believe it's
Mhm.
damaging all of our properties. I believe, and yes, I don't know if you know what he's talking about, but I am fully aware. And
Is it that sewer in the front of Yasmin? So like that Cleveland like floods all the time? Hi, Taylor. Is that sewer, the one that like, because I remember like 3 or 4 years ago, Yasmin's parking lot would flood so horribly every time it would rain. And then all of a sudden one day it like all went away. So it sounds like that's how they fixed that issue, correct? Or am I completely wrong with all that?
maybe a topic for after a while.
Okay.
No, to be honest, yes, that's the relief.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. And then that sewer that it's supposed to tie into, is that Columbus or is that us?
I think that's where he was talking. One of them would have been us, one of them would have been Columbus if they had either or. But
Okay.
right now the relief is where it's at.
Us. Yeah, but Mike, when that sewer that you know is deficient, is that us or is
Oh.
that Columbus?
Well, that's the
We don't know yet because we
The
don't
$1
have.
million question.
that is the definitely the multi-dollar question.
Dollar.
I
Okay.
am panning over. I'm trying to find.
But we can
uh,
assist you with that, at least maybe look for those plans too,
Well,
maybe.
the history of that is as follows. Let me see. Can I share my screen?
Oh.
Okay, I just attempted to share my screen. So can you see a map that has some yellow and some
Yes,
pinkish and
sir.
some bluish?
Yep.
Okay. So let me turn off the parcels. Let me turn off the parcels. Okay. So what you are seeing here is the green pipe and the green circles. This is the village's storm sewer system.
Mhm.
Some of this we're actually removing from the village's system. We just haven't updated everything yet because they are not the village's responsibility. They are privately owned sewers. So the pipe that has the deficiency is this pipe right here.
Okay.
And the deficiency is, I believe it is within 75 feet of this manhole right here. So it's approximately right here.
Okay,
So what happens is, here's the parking lot drainage.
okay,
This is roof drain drainage. Now, one thing you have to remember or realize about GIS documents is they're not always physically 100% correct. So things might be slightly off spatially, but conceptually they're in the right place. So this is the parking lot drainage. This is a little bit of drainage that is along Cleveland Avenue. So what happens is these two pipes here, flow comes over from the west side of Cleveland Avenue. It comes through these pipes. You get parking lot drainage from this shopping strip, comes into these catch basins, goes north into this pipe, flows east into this pipe. This here is roof drainage. Now, somebody, the property owner, I assume, has disconnected their roof drains from the storm sewer system. So their roof drains actually, at least when I was last out there, they no longer tie into this. They just splash out onto the pavement behind the alley, behind the building.
okay,
This is the line here that has the deficiency. This little dinky stub piece right here is the relief that somebody has installed in this drainage structure. So
okay,
what happens is flow comes down through here, it hits this deficiency, it backs up into this manhole, comes into this manhole, and then this is the first place it can pop out, and
okay.
it comes out of this,
New people's
it
backyards.
comes out of this. Yeah. Now, the question you asked, Stacy, is the probably one of the biggest points of contention between the village and the private property owners. And that is based on legal counsel's interpretation. So this was Gene's interpretation before he left um, Frost Brown Todd. And I believe that Jesse thus far has found no other document to counter Gene's interpretation. But legal counsel's interpretation is that based on the documents, based on the plats and the surveys or deeds or property descriptions for these properties, this pipe here is legal counsel's interpretation. It is owned by this property owner right here, and that it has never been conveyed to the village's ownership.
Is that the Steak and Shake? What is that?
No, this right here is the Yasmin International
Yeah, what's
Market.
next to it?
This
Oh,
is
is there like a random-
5454 Cleveland Avenue.
Okay, 54.
I think
And there
Steak
is
and
an
Shake would be like,
actual sinkhole there now, and it has actually been there
Yes.
for 2 or 3 years. It is extremely large. And we have been in contact with them to get it fixed, but again, it's an issue because they don't believe it's their issue. I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth. I know it's sold multiple times, so I don't want to say it's the current owners, but at some point, they're in disagreement that they need to fix it because the reason that there's a sinkhole is because of this release has actually washed away so much that, it's the back and forth. This
Right.
involves,
Chicken or the egg, yep.
yeah. So as you can
And-
see, this is not an easy, and this has been, Mike is not wrong about this. Like when he said 2007, I think that's what he said originally. That's not wrong. I mean, it's been going on. I found emails back that far, and I'm just going to say it. I know people may not want to hear this, but we don't have cooperation. I mean, it's going to end up in a lawsuit is my understanding, to say it nicely, because no one believes it's their fault or wants to be, I don't want to say they don't want to be cooperative, but at this point, I'm going to say after 10 years, that there's no other way to say it nicely. Everybody knows that this is there. Everybody knows that this is a problem, and nobody's forced it to be fixed.
Have we sent out a letter or anything, a strongly worded letter? at
I
any-
will tell you, this is all public record. So obviously I'm going to be extremely careful with what I've actually been to the property and been run off of the property, and it was not polite. It was not nice. And, it was to the, yes. And then we actually did, I don't know what was done before me, but at one point they were pumping all of the water from the parking lot onto Cleveland Avenue, which was causing Cleveland Avenue to get
Yeah.
flooded,
I
and
know.
down Jordan Road. And we did deliver a letter, and that person was also chased off of the property.
Okay, I think at some point we need to have an executive session to discuss all of this then, is what it sounds like.
I would love to have a conversation about it, but yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
difficult to have I mean, these are our residents, you know.
I know.
There's multiple sides to every single story. I don't know what happened before I was here. I know I have not been able to get any further than where we are right now, for multiple reasons. And again, I think you know that there was a situation not too long ago, and yeah, you don't. Business is business. I understand that too. So I don't want to go any further in it, but I would love to see this get done, because it is not just damaging my property. You know, several residents. We now have sinkholes in our backyard, multiple sinkholes in our backyards.
Well, my parents bought that property too, so Mike,
Oh yeah. So now you do have another, yeah.
so now we have a property on Jordan too, so. Um. Okay, I mean, I think we should coordinate, you know, those, I think we should pursue that a little bit and maybe coordinate that at a little bit of a later time, but let's focus on kind of the engineering standpoint for now.
Yeah.
Is there any way to go like bypass that somehow? Like, is there a creative? No, there's no.
No.
I think the way
Plumbing
that
that we can do.
I think one of the things that we had talked about before, Mike, was at the end of the day, we fix it and we basically sue them for their portion of it. I mean, I do believe that that was discussed at one point, because again, it's not, in the event that the village does take on the full amount and Columbus isn't willing to help, because again, this is in
Where does
our
Columbus-
backyard.
Yeah,
Regardless of whose it is, it's on Minerva Park grounds. So, you know, regardless of how it happens, I don't think every resident on Jordan Road should continue to suffer. And again, it's not a short term. We've been doing this for years. So
it's like a double whammy over here too, you know? It's like one side, one, you know, whatchamacallit, the storm sewers on the East Shore, and then the other side gets all this. It just sucks.
Yeah.
For lack of a better professional term, it sucks. So,
awesome.
I don't know if I would use that
Todd,
word.
and Stacy, just so you know, and Mike might be able to chime into this a little bit because he's been part of all that. We were able to obtain a 0% interest with an OPWC loan for those last two things. We hired a person that I got a referral for which was is it Amic? I'm pretty sure it's
Ben Amick with Amick Consulting Group.
Yeah, he was phenomenal. He comes in, he does the entire project. I think he charged us somewhere between $8,000 and $10,000. But he was able to obtain both OPWC loans for us. And that would be, it is a longer, I mean, again, you want to get these projects done as soon as possible. It is a long process going with the OPWC loan. A lot of times you have to have your bid things in before July. So if we miss this July, which we're probably going to, you can't even apply for it until next year. And then you don't get the funds until the next year. So we're talking, this could be like a 2024 project at this point. But that's the way these things work. So
and actually, if we could develop a project and get a good construction estimate for you, depending on the funding schedule, we might be able to get it into the application of this year, which is generally in September and October, and then maybe it could get approved and be available for 2023 funding. There also are a couple other funding alternatives that I've been investigating because, you know, there was some additional funding provided to the state of Ohio, and they're looking at different ways to fund water and wastewater treatment plant projects and water distribution and then wastewater collection projects. I had an email exchange earlier this year with legal counsel and the village planner There is a possibility of using some other funds that were provided to the village for certain improvements. Um, the states and I think the United States government uh, clarified some things and allowed certain well, I don't know why I'm dancing around it that much. I guess there's some COVID relief funding that can sometimes be redirected to certain infrastructure
Okay.
projects, depending on if it meets specific criteria. So, depending on how much COVID funding the village received and how much is still left unspent, sometimes that can be redirected with approval. There's also, um, excuse me, there are also we actually just came across, I shouldn't say we've done this before, but this just happened on a recent project where there sometimes smaller communities can piggyback their funding request on a much larger loan that another community is securing from uh, Ohio Water Development Authority is one of the main funding agencies. And so what will happen is, um, I'll give you an example. We had a client in the southwestern part of the state that had a large wastewater treatment plant project, roughly a $53 million construction cost. They were securing a loan through OWDA. They uh, were approached by a metro park district in the state of Ohio that was looking to do a storm sewer project. And what happened was the client in Southwest Ohio actually sponsored the loan application for this metro park district. And then what happens is the interest that is generated by the OWDA loan to this large wastewater treatment plant project, they can actually take that interest and that funds the loan slash grant to this other smaller client. So there are sometimes opportunities where we might be able to piggyback on things like that. So going back to Tiffany's comment, or it wasn't not necessarily a comment, but what she was bringing up is when you work with somebody like Ben, there's an opportunity to have these types of discussions with Ben because Ben writes grants for a lot of different, and I'm not pushing Ben, but I know you guys have worked with Ben, so that's why I'm mentioning Ben. We've had great success with Ben, and I've talked to clients, other clients who have worked with Ben who also have great success with Ben. Um, you have a conversation with Ben, and because he does a number of grants and different types of grants and different types of loan applications for different types of funding sources with various clients, he's usually pretty well in tune with alternative funding sources that are out there. So my opinion will almost always be that it is worth working with someone like Ben when available, because while it may seem like a, $8,000 to $10,000 could sound a little high, but if he gets you a low interest or a no interest loan, you
It's free
save
money.
far more than that than going out into the open market and getting a loan. So
Yeah.
I think there's an opportunity if we can settle down a scope of work for this, we can at worst probably get into the next round of funding applications to maybe do the project in 2023.
Okay. So worst case
It you know
scenario,
it's something that you obviously, like Tiffany said, you want to do faster, you want to do sooner, but you know as I mentioned earlier, our first construction cost estimate that we delivered to the village was in excess of $1 million, and it's not like the village just has $1 million sitting there
must be
waiting
nice.
to be spent. So
Worst case scenario, can we even go ahead with the project without cooperation? Just if we were for some reason theoretically to want to foot the whole bill, can we do that? Or do we have to have permission to go on their property, et cetera?
so I think what we did previously was when we provided the construction cost estimate, we broke that construction cost estimate into three pieces so that
Mhm.
you could see this is what would be the cost for on the village's property. This would be the cost if you went over into this property and just replaced it yourselves. And then this is what would happen if you had to replace some pipes on the city of Columbus's system. So we broke that down so you could see how
Okay.
it would work.
Okay.
Um, I that's definitely a legal counsel question.
Okay.
Um, I have seen it. I can't point to an exact example, but I feel confident in saying that I have seen situations like this before where a municipality did something on their own and then worked out the back charging later, whether it be through suit, whether it be through agreement, whether it be through arbitration. Um, I've seen it done, but that's 100% a legal counsel question. And I
Mhm.
mean, I think it's worth asking the question because,
Yeah. I
as
just didn't
Tiffany
know.
said, cooperation has been a challenge in this area. And I think
And just
I think the village staff and the village personnel know what they want to do. I just don't know if there's been the appetite for doing it as far as really pushing the issue.
mhm.
I think we've gotten, everyone always likes to use this sports analogy. I think we've gotten to about the 1 yard line a couple times. We just haven't been able to push it across the goal line. So
Okay. Um, I think I would at least like to know our options for everything. I always, I guess that's what I do in my career is like I'm a garbage woman. I have a plan A and a plan B. So if something goes wrong, like I know worst case scenario, this is our other option. So I would like to at least know the details of everything, and kind of weigh our options in that sense. Tiffany, I know you're there. You're just coughing, I guess. So I think we should pursue at least getting that information and seeing what can come of that. Because, and Mike, how long have we been trying to get information or with that cooperation? Do you know?
this has been an ongoing discussion since I came to the village and I started working with the village. We've started doing village engineering work since in 2005.
I
So,
mean,
I mean, there have been discussions about this area. There have been conversations about this area since probably 2005 at least.
that's ridiculous. I mean, I can say that on the record. I'm sorry, it is. That's ridiculous so.
I'd say to get to this point, it's been and Tiffany, you've gone through a lot of the documentation too, as far as the email exchanges and letters. It's been a lot of finger pointing, um, and there have been statements that were made, I think, that led one party to believe one thing that we now think is not true, and um, so you get I think it's like I said, legal counsel has an interpretation that pipe is private and so it needs to be handled privately. The shopping strip owner I think has a different feel, and then to make it even slightly more challenging, the shopping strip owner isn't even the person who we think owns the pipe. So there's a third party involved. It appears that the 5454 Cleveland Avenue, legal counsel's interpretation is that 5454 Cleveland Avenue actually owns that pipe and is responsible for maintaining that pipe. They have granted the property to their south, which is the shopping strip. They've granted them an easement to tie into their pipe. So it's we 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 know somebody installed a relief that's within the shopping strip property's owner's property. We think the pipe that is deficient is owned by 5454 Cleveland Avenue. And then the people who are probably suffering the most out of this are people within the village. So it's, I think I think the village is at least currently consistent in its interpretation as far as who owns the pipe and who should be responsible for repairing the pipe. So I think and this is a point that I've tried to stress a couple times in previous meetings with previous iterations of council, that at this point, in my opinion, it's a legal issue now rather than an engineering issue. I think we know the solution from an engineering standpoint, at least a
Okay.
short-term solution, but there isn't anything that the village can. It goes back to your just earlier question. Right now, I don't think we can just realistically go out there and put a shovel in the ground and start fixing it
Okay.
without legal counsel's interpretation.
Okay, so basically that's kind of our next step is like the scope work to the best of our ability has been done. We know that what needs to be done. There doesn't seem to be a lot of cooperation from other parties involved. We know how to secure funding. We have that. We basically have an estimate. Is that correct too? More or less?
We have a preliminary estimate for the
Okay.
36-inch diameter pipe.
Okay.
We've never done an estimate yet for the village on a smaller diameter pipe, just because we're not sure if that's the direction we need to go. But it's probably something that, depending on where the pricing comes in, and I wish there were an easy way to do this, because I really am curious to see what would happen if we just fixed this pipe right here
Can we do that in
and
steps?
then and then eliminated this. Wait till everything renders. If we could fix this pipe here and then eliminate
That.
or force somebody to eliminate this outlet or relief, I'm very curious to see what would happen.
Can we do
Um,
that?
We probably could. The problem is we would need to know what pipe size to make it. So I mean, we're not wasting any effort. I mean, we still would need to go through the effort that we're going through currently, because based on coordination with the mayor, we actually have tentatively planned on replacing this as part of the village's project, just to have it done in case that we got to that point. So, I mean,
Can we like,
I say we
Yeah.
get through the modeling and
Yeah.
then we see what the new modeling says, and then maybe it's worth a discussion of, if the project is still expensive, and it's, too
Can we-
expensive to do in the short term without pursuing additional funding, maybe there's a short-term solution where maybe it is we just replace one section
Let's see
as kind of like phase one of the project and just see what happens.
Would there be like a cost difference if we do it in phases versus like how, I would be curious to know how much more it would cost to do it.
It
in-
would probably be slightly more expensive per foot to do it in well, it would probably be slightly more expensive overall to do it in 2 phases versus 1 phase, but I
Okay.
don't think it would be significantly more expensive to do it.
Right.
It's just,
And-
you do lose a little bit of efficiency just because they're bringing out their equipment for only this one pipe here. One of the challenges is you probably would have slightly different bidders interested in the project, because this is a small project.
Yeah.
This is a big project.
Yeah.
So there might be some smaller firms interested in this that maybe couldn't do all of this. And then there might be some bigger firms that could do all of this that maybe aren't interested in this. So that's always a little bit of a challenge with the village size of the projects, but I don't think you'd have any problem finding anybody to do it. There would just be some slight differences.
I'd be curious to just kind of pursue that separately. I think that's a great idea and maybe that would at least help temporarily. Okay, so those are our options. That makes sense. Seems complicated. And then, there's been kind of some questions floating around about financing. I think you answered that very well. Tiffany, I don't know if you want to add anything in there, but sounds like we're good on financing. We have options. It's just a time issue and the ball is not in our court at this point. So, do you,
The quick answer to everything is, when it comes to the sewer projects, and most people aren't going to see this before you guys vote on this tomorrow, but this is just something for you guys. And I know you kind of already know this, but anytime you can get Ben involved, and he has been absolutely amazing. Again, I think we were like number 1 out of all of the projects that they took for one of our OPWC loans, which is phenomenal for us because of us being a small village. So it was well worth it. we would always want to go that direction. Even if we had $1 million sitting in the bank, if you can get a 0% interest loan, why would you not? So I know it's not fair to say people just don't understand and all of that. You know, the difficult part for me is the person that's spreading all of this type of stuff is the person that was involved in the OPWC loans the last 2 times. So I'm not going to go in detail on that, but we
It's-
don't have $1 million. We don't have $5 million to do all of these projects. We're never going to have that sitting in there, at least in the short term. There's always going to have to be an option for us to get some sort of loan. These things were, I don't want to say neglected. The village didn't have the funds or the means to do these projects 10 years ago. And unfortunately, these are things that we still have to do, and we've got to figure out ways to do it. We are not neglecting them. We are not going to neglect them. I know with you on top of them, with me on top of them, it's not going to happen. So there's no reason for anybody to believe that these projects are not going to continue to move forward. Because if it's everything I have, you know, they're going to. What we're doing tomorrow has absolutely nothing to do or going to stop these particular things.
Two
I had a
separate things.
meeting with Emmett yesterday and re-verified that with him, with the legal team, that there is no reason to believe that because of this loan or anything like that, we wouldn't be able to obtain an OPWC loan. And the answer was absolutely not.
Yep, we have the funds, we have the ability to do it. It's two different things. The only thing is too, I want to mention is fungibility of money. So if we free up our general fund because we're not paying for other things through our general fund, we actually have more ability to take out or pay for other things too. So that's something that a lot of people kind of forget about, but fungibility is a very important thing in
Yeah,
regards.
you want to
Yes.
maximize what you can do with the money.
Yeah.
And when you are, you know, even a low percent interest loan in many instances is better than paying for it out of pocket, because you
inflation.
have to
Yeah.
have $1 million in your pocket, or you have to have, I mean, for example, let's say some of these sewer projects that are like $200,000, $300,000, they have an annual payback, or an annual payment to OPWC of maybe $20,000 over 20 years. Well, you only have to have, $20,000, or you have $300,000.
Yeah.
So I mean, it really can help out, and it lets you tackle more projects because you have more funding available.
And these projects, they're serious. So if you like neglect your home and you don't fix your leaky roof on time because you're waiting to save up, like that's going to cause more damage. So your leaky roof is going to cause you to, this is my analogy, replace your drywall. You have to do like all new stuff. So like, to me, these are somewhat time sensitive because the more we wait on this too, the more damage this is going to cause. That's another thing too. So,
And that's
and
Yeah.
you're completely right on that, only because, like he said, he's been dealing with this for how many years?
yeah, I
We've
have an
never
old
had
house.
the sinkholes and things like that. We've never had the water. And I will also be the person that says we have had larger rainstorms over the last couple years than we've ever seen. I'm also going to agree with that. So I do know people get so frustrated when they have, standing water. But the thing that Mike told me a long time ago, Mike, you may have to say it your way, not my way, is the first question he'd asked me is, how long is it there? Is it gone in like an hour? Is it gone in like 30 minutes? Is it gone in like, that can be normal when you have that much rain. But when it's staying there for days and days, like mine will stay there for 3 or 4 days, then you start getting mosquitoes really bad. There's a lot more that does come to it with the standing water. So, it's gotten worse over probably the last 5 years significantly. But I will also say, I do realize that some of these rainstorms are just so extreme that it's hard to say that it has really gotten that much worse. So I don't know if it's really gotten that much worse or the rainstorms are worse, but it appears as if the
Yeah.
damage in my yard has gotten significantly. I will say that the damage in my yard has gotten significantly
Well,
worse. in the last
if you don't fix it, even then, okay, let's take that factor out of it. Even if you don't fix it, it's gonna erode and cause more damage with
Correct.
time, right? So it doesn't, I mean, the thing is, it's gonna cost more, so. Okay, I think we're all on the same page with that. I think we know, Tiffany, what our next step is. I don't know, I think, we're gonna have to convene and talk about that. Sounds like executive session. It's something we need to talk about. Okay, Mike, what else you got?
just quickly before we move off that topic,
Yeah.
is there interest in me just reaching out to Ben and just asking him if he could put together a proposal to and basically ask him to what would it cost to put this together and look at multiple funding options rather than just OPWC? I know in the past, usually Tiffany, you've worked directly with Ben, so I'm not trying to get in the middle of that. But I just wasn't sure maybe if it was worth starting it now in, basically late April, early May, so that you're prepared in case you do want to pursue OPWC funding.
I mean, my answer is yes. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
think we have anything to lose by getting a proposal from them. Absolutely.
The more
Okay.
information we know, I'd like to, the more I feel confident that I can make a sound decision if I know all the things ahead of time instead of scrambling last minute. So I think that's a yes. We would appreciate that very much.
Okay. Yeah. In that case, I shouldn't say the only other, but really the last things I have, we did get pricing yesterday from Flowline for the 2022 CCTV work. They gave us we sent out a scope of work to do the CCTV or cleaning and inspection for the
Mhm.
sanitary sewers and cleaning and inspection for the storm sewers. The scopes of work were in line with the CCTV program documents that we submitted to the village last year. I think it was in August. We just got them yesterday afternoon, so I haven't been able to go through them in detail. The short answer is their prices are higher than they have been in the past. And the prices that they've provided are not necessarily aligned with the funding recommendations that we provided. So, for example, their bid price, their proposal price for the sanitary sewer cleaning and inspection work was approximately $38,000. If you add in, we provided a proposal to do all of our analysis work. We provided one proposal to do both storm and sanitary, which normally we provide separate. But this time I talked to Leah and we were able to provide just one proposal to do both. So our approximate engineering cost to do all the analysis and reports and updating GIS and everything that we do was approximately $6,000. So for the sanitary sewer program this year, it would be closer to $44,000 combined, engineering and the televising work. And based on past pricing and market adjustments and things like that, we had recommended that the village set aside around $39,250, 39,500, somewhere in that range. So they're coming in with our reduced cost and their increased cost on the sanitary side. They're coming in right around what we recommended the village fund for 2022. Their price does include heavy cleaning, which that's an if authorized. So it's almost like a contingency. If they don't have to do it, you don't have to pay for it. The problem that we're seeing, and this is happening across all of our construction projects, so this is not unique to the village, and I always want to point that out just in case anybody thinks this is contractors trying to take advantage of situations with a small client. This is something we're finding everywhere. Basically, the cost of fuel is mostly for what these types of contractors do. Their fuel costs are essentially double what they were last year. So that's caused an increase in their pricing. They also, like everybody else, are facing labor shortages. So their labor prices have gone up over the last year plus too. So their sanitary sewer prices are higher than their previous sanitary sewer prices. Um, you know, historically, we have budgeted $2 per linear foot for cleaning a pipe. That's been very consistent over the last 6 or 7 years. Their bid price was $2.25. So, only a 25-cent per foot increase, but that's from 2 to 225. I didn't do the math, but I think that's like 12.5%
12.5%.
maybe.
Yep. 12.5%.
So, that's basically a 13% increase. Um, the sewer inspection and recording, which traditionally has been $2 per linear foot, is at $2.50 now.
25%.
And again, that's a 25% increase. So those things add up very quickly. The storm sewer is much, much higher than that. Flowline does a very good job of going out to the site and doing some inspection work of their own before they put their price together. The feedback that we got from Flowline is that the storm sewer area that we have identified for cleaning is going to take I guess it's difficult to access, and it's going to take a little more effort to clean it and televise it than it might normally take, just based on their initial observations of how the sewers look. So whereas we budgeted or recommended the village budget approximately $21,000 for cleaning and televising, Flowline's price came in at $50,000. And I have not had an opportunity to follow up with them to see why these prices are so much higher. Their recording and inspection price is $2.50 per foot, which is the same price they provided on the sanitary side. But all of their cleaning prices are double or almost triple what they proposed on the sanitary side. As I mentioned, we just got this yesterday afternoon, so we haven't had an opportunity to talk to Flowline about it. There's a very We've worked with Flowline so much, not just in the village but other places. I have very much confidence in them. They've done great work for the village. They've come out on the short, basically emergency calls for the village. I feel very confident in saying this is not an opportunity. They're not seeing this as an opportunity to, rip off the village. If they're saying this is what it costs, this is what they truly think this work costs. We've never seen a price of $6.50 to clean a 12-inch pipe. Basically, on the sanitary sewer side, that's $2.25. So there's something going on there. They did mention that this area was going to be a challenge. So Randall and I need to have a follow-up conversation with them about the storm sewer and figure out what's going on with the pricing. And then what we can do is we can come back to the village and say, this is what it is. You only have so much money that you can spend. Do you want to spend that money and just reduce the scope of work? Do you want to just clean and televise less sewer length, but still make progress on your system? So before we have that discussion with the village, we want to have a discussion with Flowline. I mean, we recommended budgeting approximately $30,000 total for cleaning, televising, engineering, and when you add our cost on top of Flowline's cost, it's coming in closer to $56,000, which is, basically almost double what we recommended be budgeted.
Guess
So
we
I'm
should
going
have
to
done
send
it last year.
well, those fuel costs, this has become a challenge. We have a couple different projects where we're drilling wells on the projects, and that's another situation where there's just a piece of equipment that's running all day long,
Mhm.
and it runs on diesel
Absolutely.
fuel.
Mhm.
And we've been hit with we've been hit with change orders on other projects that are 25% overall, but a lot of them are, hey, we need basically double the cost for fuel, and we need another 10% because of steel prices and another 50% because of this material. So this unfortunately is just this is happening on every project, and it's becoming a big challenge to everybody. But um, I'll put together a follow-up email message that summarizes what I just discussed. My recommendation my recommendation is, at least for the sanitary sewer, as long as you can comfortably cover maybe an additional $1,000 or $2,000 based on what we recommended be budgeted, I recommend you proceed with the sanitary sewer, because that price is in line with what we recommended you budget for this year's work. Then we'll have the follow-up conversation with Flowline about the storm sewer, and then we can follow up with you to determine what we want to do about that. But also, knowing this, we are going to go, when we do our update for the CCTV program documents, we intend to update them every year to reflect what you've done. And then, 2022 stuff gets then recycled out to 2029. We will talk to Flowline, and we'll make sure that we understand what's going on with them after these other conversations, and we'll adjust our recommended budgets accordingly. And then there's probably, the village is just going to have an internal conversation where we're still going to recommend this everything be done over a 7-year cycle, but you might have to make some choices as to if you really do things over a 7-year cycle, or if you just find the money. So, and
Not fun.
unfortunately, what we're hearing is nobody has a strong feel for when these prices will come back down. In certain materials, the pessimistic outlook is that they might not come back down because people will just get accustomed to paying that price, and it's going to be challenging to bring them back down. Um, we are hearing from some contractors that they expect a lot of these price increases, and they expect a lot of these supply chain issues. They expect a lot of these delivery challenges to extend at least into 2023.
That's what I keep
Um,
reading too. Yeah.
yeah, and originally people were the feedback we were getting from contractors was into 2023.
Yeah.
The feedback we've been getting from contractors lately is probably through 2023. So it's a very difficult situation.
So just to play devil's advocate, I know this is probably not a good idea, but theoretically, if we chose to not do anything this year, what would be the repercussions of that? What are the cons of that?
I'm gonna answer that question really fast, Mike, and then I'm gonna let you. We did
Right.
postpone it last year. We were supposed to do this last year.
Okay.
Council decided not to. Had we done it, as he stated, it would have been a lot cheaper last year. So we've already
Yeah.
put it on the back burner for one entire year, and that's cost us X amount of thousands of dollars.
Mhm.
So my recommendation is also not to postpone it another year,
Right.
because now you're getting really far behind on our cycle, because
Okay.
now you're pushing every other project back a year. So you're not just pushing this one, but each individual area is going to be pushed back as well. I'm not a huge fan of spending X amount of dollars either, but I'm only pointing that out, that this was slated, and council did not decide to. I put the legislation in front of them last year, and council decided against it.
I mean, I guess my question is from an engineering standpoint, like how much damage is this going to cause? I'm sure it will cause more damage on storm sewers, and I'm living the Park Lane dream over here, but like, I just want to hear it from the engineer.
Well, the challenge is we don't know what that will do, because the whole purpose of the cleaning and televising is to determine the condition of the sewers. So it's just another year of not knowing if sewers need to be replaced. It's another year of not knowing if sewers are causing problems elsewhere. So it's kind of difficult to have a straight answer, other than it's just another year of not knowing. And you know, it's not
But
uncommon for some of the sewers to be a priority 4, which means they're in pretty good shape. But then it's also not uncommon in the village for them to just be clogged with roots or have breaks in the line that need to be replaced.
right.
I mean, these sewers are almost 100 years old at this point.
And is it
So,
also,
um,
go ahead. No.
no,
You finish.
yeah. So it's difficult to say exactly what will happen. Other than again, it's another year of not knowing, and then it's another year of deferring any maintenance that should be done to it.
Yeah, it could be another East Shore. Well, like worst case scenario, it could be an East Shore situation, correct? That we're just possibly,
Yes,
okay.
yes.
That's just what I needed on the record, basically. And then like, just for everybody, in case somebody wants to watch this, which area are we talking about specifically?
For the storm sewer, we are. This area is primarily Lakewood Drive, Alder Vista, and Maplewood. So it's the section that's I think that's Briar Rose. So it's the section of Village east of Briar Rose, um,
It's like the
all
oldest
the
section.
way down Lakewood, Alder Vista, Maplewood, and then you know how Maplewood and Lakewood kind of come back
Yeah,
together to
yeah.
get all of those sewers before they tie into the golf course.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that part of that, like Briar Rose, isn't that like the oldest section too? Yeah, okay. Somewhere in there.
Sorry, there are our condos are being painted, so
You have
I just
distractions too in your house?
I just
What the heck?
I just had some painters on the at the window.
Oh,
So
surprise. Okay, so I think that's pretty clear to me about what's kind of going on here. Just to kind of come back to the villagers and give them an update about everything. I do think we should start thinking of alternatives for the Jordan Road situation. So I'm gonna kind of brainstorm, think up of things with that, and maybe talk to legal about that too.
yeah, and I based on the preliminary email traffic from early Monday morning, our modeler had made a lot of progress, and he completed one pass through the model, but there was a section of the model that he thought looked a little strange, and so we were debating. He was asking for my approval to add to add other sections into the model. It's it just costs us more money internally, so he wanted to make sure he did it before we. I mean, it's nothing we're going to come back to the village for at this point. He just wanted to make sure that he had my approval to do it, just to kind of settle some things down. So I'm hoping that he can finish his model this week, and that we'll have a pretty good idea of this is as far as we can reduce this pipe size. And then I can talk with Randall, and I can talk with some of our other consultant and our senior technical people internally to say, okay, here's where we are. What are some options? What are the positives and negatives associated with maybe just doing this one stretch of pipe if the client can't afford it? Um, and if and see if it's worth trying it. I don't want to make it I don't want to make it a science experiment or anything and defer work that we know should be done for the sake of you know trying to save a penny. But in this instance, it's not a penny. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially. So depending on the village's um, you know gut gut lining, there may be an opportunity to try something in the short
Okay,
term and then
yeah.
focus
Let me
on a long-term solution when you can fund it better.
Yeah, well, let me see what I can come back with too. Yeah, and I'm kind of against Band-Aid issues, but this Band-Aid fixes to things, but I don't think this is I don't want to call this a Band-Aid situation. And there's no way to model that in a way where we can bypass that one pipe, correct? Because we don't really have enough information just to model.
We don't uh, we don't really have anywhere else we can go with it is the challenge. So if I were to reshare my screen, the challenge that we have is, you know, all of the flow from Columbus comes right here. And then these pipes tie into here.
Mhm.
So, even if we were to eliminate this flow completely, we still have the entire Ivywood apartment complex technically is draining to Minerva Park. So there's no real way to, I mean, we, let me restate that. We have looked at potentially diverting flow south to the Jordan Road storm sewer.
Okay.
But to do that most likely requires that the Jordan Road sewers be upgraded too. So one of the things that we've looked at, or that we're starting to look at, it's an idea that we had internally, but we wanted to get the modeling finished first, is potentially putting in a structure in one of these manholes that splits the flow. Some of the flow would some of the flow would continue in this pipe, which maybe allows us to have a smaller pipe size. And then some of the flow would get diverted south into the Jordan Road sewer that, we would want to just basically take full advantage of its capacity. So maybe rather than having a large, a 36-inch diameter pipe, maybe we make a smaller pipe, but we send some of the flow elsewhere. So
Sorry for a sec. My kid was running around with crayons and we have wallpaper, so it's great.
oh, that's all
Yeah.
right.
Awesome.
That's
Yeah.
what I'll do. That's what I'll do later today. So
Yeah. Okay. I mean, there's no way around this is basically it. Okay. Okay. I'll see what I can do on my end. Do you need any other, one of our neighbors mentioned that she had some blueprints of things that tied in from about 2 years ago, because she keeps amazing records. I don't know if that would be helpful or if we know anything. Is there any sort of record that you think that we can find for you or that you need?
as far as I know, we have everything that
Okay.
everybody has from a large scale. We
Mhm.
got documentation from Franklin County because they're the ones who technically installed the Jordan Road sewers. We have all of the available, as far as we can tell, all the available record documents for what's installed on the west side of Cleveland Avenue. We have the record documents for this. That said, if somebody has information, I'll never turn down information. The worst, I mean, worst case is it's something we already had and it didn't, it doesn't hurt us. Best case is there's sometimes someone always has some random document that someone lost or someone didn't document at some point, and then we get a little bit better information. So if somebody has additional information and they're willing to share it with you, we're always willing to look at it. I'll never turn down information.
Okay, I can help you with that. It's probably redundant, but it never hurts to look.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So this is kind of our biggest doozy right now, and price hikes for everything, which, I mean, that's happening. Like, I think we put an order in at Lowe's on Friday and then we needed to order something else, and on Monday the prices changed. So, it's not great. It's not great out there construction wise. So I totally get that. Is there anything else that you need from me?
I can't think of anything right now. I think if if there's any way that I can help with the village's conversation with trying to figure out, I mean,
This-
if there is additional information or at least a refresher that maybe legal counsel, I think when this was last discussed, I think it was legal counsel and planning were having a conversation about what to do over here and the best way to approach these owners. And I think there was a plan, and I think maybe they might have approached them, but I'm not sure if it went beyond the approach phase. So
Okay.
if there's another meeting that you want, Stacy, where it's everybody kind of gets together again, because we've done a lot of this via email and we've done a lot of it, this group's talking and then this group chimes in, which is fine. As I've told Tiffany many times, you know, I I never want you guys to feel like I'm trying to generate more work for myself or insert myself where I don't need to be inserted, because I want you guys to get value for your money and not, spend it needlessly. But in this situation, I feel like maybe we're at another point where whoever is involved in this, maybe another 1 hour meeting so that we're all on the same page would probably be beneficial. And then, that way if I need to provide any more information for legal or planning or whomever, and then we all kind of say, okay, this is the actual direction in which we're going to head. I'm up for that if you guys want to do that.
I think
It's
that's,
usually more cost effective for you guys if we can do it via Teams or via Zoom or something, just because then I don't have to drive anywhere. But and it's usually quicker. But whatever. I mean, if you guys want to have it in person, if you want to have it via Teams, even if you don't want to have it, I mean, I'm just throwing it out there
no,
that,
I think we
you know,
should. I think we need
I'm
to
up for helping.
combine all of our perspectives and our expertise just to come up with a good plan about everything. Let me do a little bit more background research in terms of that, kind of ask around a little bit more. I think I need a little bit more background from maybe previous council or whatever, I just got here. So, but I'll touch base with you and then we'll come up with a time for everybody. Sooner than later would be good, but yeah, I think we should, in the meantime, at least pursue funding options, just so we're not losing any.
Yeah, and we're continuing with our modeling and our conceptual planning. It's none of that is affected by this.
Okay.
The only thing this really affects is kind of how we show it on a drawing. I mean, right now we're anticipating that this pipe be replaced and we're anticipating that the village does it. If
Okay.
it turns out that someone else wants to do it, then we just change the color on our drawing basically from one color to show it being done by somebody else. So it won't really affect our design at all. And in fact, it would be probably beneficial for us if for whatever reason, if the private owner wants to do the work themselves, it might be to everyone's benefit if we more or less said, based on our modeling, here's what you need to do. And then
Yeah,
they just kind of do what we tell them.
yeah.
But
And then when is a good timeline for the modeling to be done, do you think?
I'm hoping we can have the modeling done this week.
Okay,
I would really like to s- get our concepts more locked down before Memorial Day.
okay,
Part of that is personal in that I'm going out of town the first week of June. So
okay,
I'll be out the Friday of Memorial Day week all the way through that next week. And then I'll be back on the 13th. So I'm hoping I can get some stuff locked down. So maybe I can get it in front of the village and you guys can chew on
yeah,
it while I'm on vacation. Um, but a lot of that just depends on how this modeling shakes out. So I'm
yeah,
hoping we get the modeling done this week or at the latest early next week. And then it won't take us very long to refine our concepts, um, and then come to the village with options. What I would like to do is get the modeling settled, develop concepts, and try to have rough construction cost estimates for a couple concepts so that
mhm,
then not only are you trying to discuss it from a technical perspective, but also discussing it from what you can actually afford.
yeah.
So
Okay, that
that's
sounds,
my that's my that's my fingers crossed
yeah.
thing. But
With the prices and everything, I want to get moving on everything pretty much.
yeah, and realistically, I mean, I'll say this: even if we hit the street, even if we were to hit the street with a project, um,
It's gonna take forever.
this summer, say for example, if we were able to bid, if we were able to bid almost, if we were completely ready to go and you had the funding and we were able to bid it around Memorial Day, there's a distinct possibility you might not even be able to finish construction by the end of the calendar year. That's how long pipe, especially the pipe that we need to use for these types of projects, their pipe is running extremely long right now, which no one's been able to give us a great answer why. Uh, but a lot of it is just because they just their plants apparently can't run at the same capacity at which they were running previously. They're facing shortages, they're facing material shortages, so it just takes a long, long time. So, you know, what I would really like to do is get this project to a point where it can get out on the street and we can get it bid, but also build in enough time so that, you know, no one necessarily likes to, you don't like to build projects in the winter, these types of projects. It's just a challenge. But if you can bid a project like this in the winter so that you can get all of your paperwork done ahead of time, you can get all your submittals done, and they can get pipe ordered, then the pipe can, hopefully be delivered when the construction season starts, and then they can just roll right into it. So, that would be the perfect scenario, but a lot of it just depends on the funding. So I'll reach out to Ben and just see if he can put together a proposal, and I'll ask him to I'll ask him to include in his proposal, checking maybe up to 4 different funding sources. And so, he'll spend some time just confirming the requirements of the funding sources, and then basically we would all agree on what source to pursue, and then he'd have his cost with helping to put that together. So it's not like you would necessarily pursue 4 funding sources, so you wouldn't have to pay like 4 times the cost. But there's a little bit of investigation work and confirmation work, and then the production cost. So I'll ask him for that, and I'll ask him to send that to the village, and then you guys can talk about that. And then at least, like you said, that way we can start thinking about how we might actually be able to fund this.
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, I think all of that is really important. So, okay, let's get the ball rolling at least. Just more info is always good. That's all I got.
Okay, that is all I have for this topic. But what I would like to do, if I have something that I would like to discuss very quickly, not associated with this topic. So I guess
Sure.
if when you close this meeting, if we could stop recording or whatever associated with this meeting, but if
Sure.
people could hang on for just a minute, I
Sure,
would appreciate that.
absolutely. Okay, so we're gonna end that meeting. I don't know, Tiffany, are you there? Anybody is there? Because I'm not in
I'm here.
control. Okay,
Yeah, no, I am. So, we're gonna end streets meeting at 11:40, and I don't even know what date we're at. Awesome.
27. Thank you so much, Mike.